Massachusetts. I grew up in the Bay Area in California, and I've been coming to India since 1986. The first time I came was a tour, and it was quite a good one because we circled the subcontinent. We didn't get any further north than Delhi and no further south than Madurai, but we covered quite a lot of ground. First of all, I want to thank all the people that I've been corresponding with for the past 2 years, the members of the Kalki fan group, and also all the members of the REACH organization that is renovating temples that are in danger of falling apart due to various things that have been done to them recently. Also ones that weren't really very well known about. Certainly, okay. My connection, whoops, now it's off again. My connection with all the people that I've been corresponding with has been one of the most pleasurable things that's happened to me in my life, because I had already become a great fan of things Indian, and I didn't really have anybody to share them with. And as time went on, I found that what I liked particularly about India were the sculptures, and the sculptures I liked particularly were the very early ones. I've become rather fussy in the sculpture that I really love. I find that nothing much after the 10th century sends me. The things that I like are all earlier than that. I wanted to tell you how I became interested in India. I think one of these things was written, you already took. Have they seen what I said about myself?
Yeah. You can go ahead again.
Well, when I was about 8 years old, I found the book Ripley's Believe It or Not. And the very beginning of that book talks about sadhus on the banks of the Ganges in Kashi doing severe tapas, things like holding their arm over their head. And there was one man who watched the sun cross the sky until he was blind, but he could still feel the heat coming from the sun and would still follow it. And I was so amazed that there were people that would go to such lengths to reach God. And I vowed that I would get to Kashi and I would get to the banks of the Ganges at some point. And when I first went to India in '86, that was one of the first things I did. I don't know how it's happened that sculpture has become sort of my main interest. I think it's because I got a lot of art books. I bought a lot of books on Indian art and studied them and realized that what really intrigued me was the iconography. I was very interested in telling one form of a god, learning the different forms of all the major gods. And I enjoyed very much looking at art and trying to identify things. Two other interests that I had in India. One, I was intrigued with the princely states. I think I read the book Freedom at Midnight, and part of that book that really sort of intrigued me were all the crazy Maharajas and the kinds of things that they would do. I determined that I wanted to learn all the dynasties of the various states. And it has been fun learning all the different ancestries, the Suryavanshi, the Chandravanshi, and the Agnikula, and who belonged to which. And the geography of India has also intrigued me. I really wanted to know where things were, and I would look at maps of India and find occasionally that they were way off. They would have two different locations for the same place, because of the way the names have changed through the centuries. Another thing that intrigued me was the Mahayatra of the Pandavas. I wanted to find all the locations of the tirthams that are mentioned in the Mahabharata. I don't know what it was about that. There's still quite a few, I guess, that are unidentified. They still don't know exactly where they are. But I hope that I could find locations for as many as possible. thinking of things that have been sacred for so many thousands of years just really intrigues me. And I'd also like to visit as many as I possibly could. I think I'll just start looking at the sculpture that's particularly intrigued me. I'm not terribly verbal about what I like. There's usually just something about a murti that particularly intrigues me. Its gentleness or its grace. I always want it to be in good proportions. I don't care much for anything that has a head that's way too small for the body or too large for the body or whatever. But I have my favorites, and I have put a bunch of the favorites up here for you. I have many, many more than these, but these were the ones that I was able to find quickly. So this is
Are you comfortable looking at this one or can you
yeah, this will be okay. A yaksha that's in the Vidisha Museum, and it's about 2nd century BC, I guess, and it's always reminded me of Charles Lawton. I don't know if you're all familiar with him, but anyway, to me he's always looked like Charles Lawton, so that sort of intrigued me. Not a terribly happy guy, and they certainly didn't put him back together very carefully. Okay. This, I believe, is the earliest image of Narasimha, and he's here with the heroes, the Vaishnava heroes. I guess we lost the caption, but I'm afraid I can't remember them to list, but I'm sure you can. Vasudeva and Aniruddha and that's from Andhra Pradesh. Okay. This is a Shiva Ardhanarashvara, and they said it was pre-Gupta, but I don't exactly know why they think so. But I just think he's one of the most beautiful images of Shiva that I know of. This is Nilakanta in the Kalamjar fort. And that fort is mentioned in the Mahabharata, so I wonder if this is the original Nilakanta Shiva. It just always looked so unusual, with just barely showing any kind of features on the face. And this, of course, everybody is familiar with, Udayagiri Varaha. The monumentality and just the great power and self-assurance of the form, I think, is really wonderful there. Okay. This is in Bita. This is near Allahabad. And I really haven't been able to find any information about it, but I thought it was sort of a wrong way to show the Sada Shiva. Instead of having the faces at 90-degree angles to each other, they're all facing forward. And it's very early. I really would like to know more about this. It really intrigued me when I was there. Nachna, one of the wonderful ganas. There are quite a few ganas from Nachna in various museums. And it's Gupta period. This is in the United States. I believe it's in Cleveland. Just clearly one of the most beautiful faces of a Vishnu anywhere. And Kartikeya, this is in the Varanasi Museum. He's very interesting because his eyes are quite wide apart. He has the features of his face seem very unusual to me. I don't think I've ever seen another Indian image that reminds me of this.
What is this?
Kartikeya. And it's Gupta also.
How is it identified as Kartikeya?
He's sitting on his peacock. You see the tail of the peacock is behind him. This is a terracotta, which I'm very fond of. She's just such a dear little girl. Well, she's a woman, but she's very, very naive and childlike, and I've just always been very fond of her face. At Nachna again, this is a window that is sitting on the ground, and here's one of the door guardians, Gupta period. I think the most beautiful Ekamukha lingam from Bumrah. We were lucky enough to take the very, very terrible road there. I think we crossed the creek to get to it, to see this. It's one of the few things that's left of that.
Where is this?
Bumrah, Madhya Pradesh. And of course, that's familiar to everybody, I'm sure. I've heard various theories about these figures down below. Are they the Pandavas, or are they three of the...
Either either Purushas or Pandavas.
I think they're the Ayuda, they're the representatives of their weapons, and those are the two Asuras on the side.
This is Devgar. This is from where? Devgar.
Oh, this is Devgar. This is in Uttar Pradesh, Lalitpur district. It's one of the most amazing Gupta sites anywhere. This is Tala. This is Talagaon in Chhattisgarh. It's south of Bilaspur. And this is a site I would really recommend everyone visiting, because I found the sculpture here absolutely amazing. Not just this figure, which is about, this is about 6 feet tall, I think, or maybe even a little taller than that. And every part of him is made of animals. You can see his nose is a lizard, even his eyeballs are some kind of creature with something in their mouth.
That'd be around 9th century.
They think about 6th, post-Gupta. And I just thought it was Vakataka, but I have just read recently that there's another dynasty that they're attributing it to, but I don't have the information on it. But it's also mixed up with Eastern Maharashtra. The only figures I've ever seen that are at all similar to him are in the Nagpur Museum. There are a couple of other figures that have faces on their knees, and also multiple faces, not multiple heads, but a single face with a single head with 4 faces on it.
Are there other figures where every part is made looking like animals?
No, but there are these other figures that have faces in odd places, which I think probably were done by the same dynasty. No, I've never seen anything quite like him, and they don't even know what to call him.
Every part is an animal.
I think they were calling him a Rudra Pashupati, something like that. This also is from Chhattisgarh. This is from the site of Malar, one of the best Narasimhas I've ever seen. And of course, you know what that is. This is Aiboli. I love him because of his attitude. He has the most self-confident.
Where is this from?
This is
Aiboli.
Aiboli. Durga temple they call it, although that's just because it was a fort rather than it has anything to do with Durga. But he's just full of himself. This is another Chalukya Murti, and I particularly love it because the expression of the Shiva or the Dwarkala, I'm not sure which he is one of the gentlest expressions on any Shiva that I've ever seen. This is in the National Museum in Delhi, flying Vidyadharas, I guess they're called. This was a ceiling panel, also in Aiboli. Now suddenly we're in Orissa. This is in Chaurasi. I think it's Bauma Dynasty. Harrison dynasties were particularly good at Ganeshas. I think their Ganeshas are just the most charming of anywhere. This is a puzzle to me because someone told me that they thought it was quite late. This is Tiruparankuram, and someone told me that they thought it was around 12th century. And the book I got it out of felt that it was probably about 8th. So I don't know what to think. All I knew was that I thought this Natasha was gorgeous, was one of the most lovely, most graceful that I'd seen anywhere.
You said this is from Tiruparagundu.
Yes, yes, as you go up the stairs to the Garbhagriha, it's there on the right. But sadly, the faces have been recarved. Yes, yes. The face on the Natasha had been recarved, and it really upset me quite a bit. I was there about 4 years ago. And of course, this is the upper cave in the rock fort. I was so excited to find this. When I went to the rock fort, nobody would show me where that cave was. And finally, a teenage boy said, "Come follow me," and he took me up into it. And I've been looking for this Gangadhara I've been wanting to see it for many years. What puzzles me, it's Pallava, but to me the body style is much fuller. It's almost like the body style of the early Chalukyas up in Karnataka instead. But I may be wrong. Disagree with me if you...
The inscription says...
Yeah, it's definitely Pallava, yes. This is where we just were this morning. This is from Pakam. And he's just one of the greatest door guardians anywhere, I think. There are also 2 Nidis that are in the same hall, right next, very near him, that are also from Pakam, that are also extremely attractive. Mukteshwara in Kanchipuram. One thing that I loved about these were they looked down at you. When I walked around the temple, it was as if all these murtis were looking at me. And I thought it was such a brilliant way to display images, to have them looking at the people as they circle the temple. Nartamalai, Pudukkottai district, one of the door guardians, just leaning up against one of the cave entrances. They've embedded it in the concrete. I think the first time I was there, it had not been embedded.
It has been taken from somewhere.
Huh?
It's not part of this.
Oh, it is? Where is it?
This is a cave temple.
Huh?
This is a cave temple.
Right.
And it's Padeli Ishwaram. It has been taken from somewhere.
Oh, it isn't from...
It does not belong to this.
It isn't from Kar.
But it is equal.
Okay.
It is equaling anyway.
But they don't know where it was brought from? Okay. This is the Brahma from Sendalai. This is in the Tanjore Museum. Another beautiful
She
image.
is very fond of Sendalai.
Yes.
There is nothing left except some inscriptions.
Oh. They're all in Tanjore, I guess. I think there are at least 3. There's a Shiva, and I think there's a woman. I forget who she is. They're from there too. Nartamalai, a sphinx-ish type yaksha. And how beautifully they do animals. Those elephants are just better than any I've seen, or as good as... This is Nartamalai. This is a platform of Pitta. And that sphinx you just saw and these elephants are around the rim of the platform. Now that's a site you should visit if you have the time. It's a beautiful place.
I've taken the picture.
Yes, that's yours. So you tell me about it. Amazing facial expressions. Kulamangai,
Previous one.
Kanchipur district.
Ullamangai.
The previous one is from where?
Previous one.
Sculpture.
The previous one. Where is
Kudupadu.
It's interesting that that apaswara is very well, go back to that.
Yeah, can you back up?
The apasmara, usually it's hideous and little and nondescript. Here there's a lot of tension and defiance,
Yes.
which is
It's hard to see his expression, but he's just horrified, you know. He's
as he was
very
enjoying
unhappy.
it. That's all.
Bulamangai,
You have a picture without.
Without-
Yes. I need to be taught about why she
I'll
has
send it. I'll send it.
Vaishnava, why
her
her
attributes are Vaishnava.
and there's the devotee that is cutting his thigh rather than trying to slice his
Nag-
neck.
Yeah, right there.
Similar to that in Nageswaran going.
Yes.
Nageshwar.
Kumbhakonam.
Kumbhakonam.
You think it's probably Akbar?
Probably.
Huh?
Where?
It's still not identified. People say
A
different.
portrait, maybe?
One of the saints, definitely.
One of the
Yes,
saints.
the same.
But still they say it is not the dress is not suitable for upper.
That's a Toran at Srinivasanallur.
Srinivasanallu.
Srinivasanallu.
And give me the name of the temple because it skips my.
Srinivasanallu. Puranganatha.
Yes.
Puranganatha.
It's just wonderful. You have ganas with belly faces, you have varaha and bhuvaraha, you have makaras, you have all sorts of yalis, you have all sorts of things going on.
There are perhaps 5 important Edi Chola temples. Kunjai, Ullamangai, Nageshwaran Koil, Srinivasanallu, Kodungalur and Nartha. 6. Am I right? Would you like that?
What was 6?
Huh?
What was the 6th one?
Narthamala.
Oh.
Vijayalakshmi.
Okay, sure, yes.
Near Musri.
Near Mission. Trichy district. He's an excellent.
Oh, we're back in, oh, this is also
Nartham.
Srinivasanallur.
Srinivasanallu.
This is similar to Narthamalai.
Yeah. very
Yes,
similar.
yes, aren't they?
But Narthamala is all entire body of animal with a face, human face or animal itself.
Uh-huh. More from there too.
Where is this?
This is Srinivasanallur also, this is the Dakshinamurti there.
Near Musri.
Now we're in the Tanjore Museum again, and just a wonderful door guardian.
Where is it from?
Tanjavur Museum.
It's in the Tanjore Museum, but I'm sorry, I don't seem to have its location right now.
Tanjavur.
Huh?
Tanjavur.
Tanjavur.
This is Narthamalai.
The Nartamalai 12 Vishnus.
10 only.
12.
10? Only 10?
12.
12. I love this. This is the temple Kilayur up in Ariyalur district.
Arilo.
And this
Kidayur in Ariyalur district.
This Ghana, I've never seen anything happier. He's throwing himself over backwards with delight. And next to him is one who's pointing to his fangs. It's a wonderful group of Buddhamalas. It's one of the best series of Buddhamalas anywhere. And this is the door guardian there too, also Kilayur.
Kidayur.
Yeah. This is up in Delhi. I think it's Tiruvannamalai.
Thiruvaramkulam. Thiruvaramkulam.
Thank you.
Thiruvaramkulam is in Pudukottai.
This is a bronze.
It's a
Yes,
bronze.
yes.
This is the one which you find in the front of the National Museum, Delhi. This is the Chatura pose.
Her head is a little big for her body, but I still think she's one of the loveliest Parvatis anywhere. The caption didn't come along with it, so
That's why I was waiting for that.
That's all right.
Now you can see. I'll get it. caption இருக்கு.
மேல
No, that's all right.
கேள்வியா?
Yeah. Anyway, I've stolen this actually from a book by a man named Harl. It's Art and Architecture of the Indian Subcontinent. And I think she's just a lovely part of it. Tiruvalanjuri?
திருவாலஞ்சுரி.
Tiruvalanjuri. Yes.
திருவாலஞ்சுரி. திருவாலஞ்சுரி.
Another Kodabai, right? Another Kodabai?
குடவாய்
கொற்றவை.
Kotrabai, sorry.
துர்கா.
Kotrabai, yes.
துர்கா.
But she has Vaishnava
Huh?
attributes. She has chakra and shanka
Yeah.
instead of,
விஷ்ணு துர்கா.
Yeah.
விஷ்ணு துர்கா.
yes, okay. And the most famous of all the,
திருவெண்காடு.
thank you. I believe this is in Madurai, but I'm not exactly sure. It's just a beautiful sea of Vishnu.
கரியமாடி.
பின்னாடி எழுதியிருக்கு கன்னியமாணிக்க பெருமாள்.
This is in Kanchipur. I'm not able to read the caption on the base.
12th century.
It's the 12th.
12th?
11th, 12th.
Kivulur is close to Nagapattinam.
This is provenance unknown, but it's obviously Chola. And I just love there again the attitude. He's just totally full of himself. He's got great self-confidence. I love that about him. This is in New York, I believe, and just a perfect Vishnu. That's a door guardian on the Vaishnava temple in Tirumaya. Mohini at Belur. Okay, that's it.
One or two.
A few
He's back.
தமிழ்ல கொஞ்சம் சிறந்த பேசணும். ஒரு முக்கியமானது என்னன்னா, don't mind if I speak in Tamil. If I speak in Tamil, don't mind. இந்த இவங்க ஒரு இதான் 13வது தடவை இந்தியாவுக்கு வராங்க. ரொம்பவும் நம்ம இன்டலெக்சுவல் அப்ரோச் டு இந்த மூர்த்தி எல்லாம் இல்லை. டைரக்ட் அப்பீல் என்ன இருக்குங்கிறது அதுக்காக, அதாவது he says whether she finds prana in the murti, am I right?
Right, exactly.
And she is able to identify whether the idol has life in it.
Yeah.
And she is not bothered about other aspects and so on, size and so on. And by which she is able to identify certain idols as very beautiful, which are actually considered by the classical art historians also as beautiful. Gupta images, the later in South India, Pallava, Irukuvelu, Muttarayar and Edi Chola. In her opinion, there is not much of beauty in idols made later than the 10th century.
That's true, I think.
And it is an enormous amount of passion to go all over India. You have seen, she has gone to Chhattisgarh. For many of us, we may not be able to even identify where it exists. And many of the unknown places where you will find Gupta images, many of the places. And the most important thing that you can find from her when you talk to her is, you see this idol, oh, that idol, oh, that is there. If you enter the gate, if it comes slightly like this, on that side looking like this. And I have seen it, and she has seen it about 10-15 years ago. That's the kind of passion she has for sculptures of India. I don't know whether she has any interest in the sculptures of other countries.
Not too much, no, it's Indian sculpture for some reason that really.
And really we would like to know what, all of us would always be wondering, what is that for somebody in the United States to get attracted to our sculpture? So she said that she was interested in India, she got interested in India from Deputy Spilbit the Ganges and the penance பண்றவங்க. She has also got a very, very extensive gallery. You can all access to them through Picasso.
I would love it very much if people would look at my Picasso gallery. My name in Picasso is Inja Maven, Injamaven, which is a very kind of silly name. The Inja is sort of what the British called India, Inja, and Maven is the Yiddish word for someone who's passionately interested in something.
She is also very keen. She would appreciate if you could go look at the legend and make changes if they are wrong.
Yes, correct me in any way you would like. I love it when sometimes in Picasso photos there will be comment after comment. People will start arguing about things.
Can you say that again? Your address?
India man, no, I have it. I will send it to you all. I will send it to you all.
Injamaven.
I'll just put it also. India man, India man.
I would love it if people would look at my albums, because I've had a lot of pleasure organizing them and putting them in.
She has been corresponding with a number of people, particularly the Ponniyin Selvan group. And when she had been doing it with one of our friends, Arvind, who gave a lecture on Mahabharata, the website of Mahabharata, I made a suggestion that we may collect this one and also work towards an encyclopedia of cultures in Indian temples. At least we may start with Tamil Nadu. Arvind is working on it along with her and along with me and all. It would be a very useful, for example, if you want to identify, she has something more. I should not forget that. If you take a Vinadhara Murti, Shiva, she will be able to identify where are all the Vinadhara Shiva. And what are the variations among them? This is something important. She can identify those guardians. I sat with her for about 3 hours to select these things. And door guardians, including all the door guardians over the entire, most of the places she has visited, and she can identify each one of them. And also because of her trained ear, trained by herself, she is able to identify which area is it, which period is it. She is able to guess most of the time correctly. In fact, I would like to mention here, anybody who spends sufficient time on looking at number of hundreds of images, he or she will be able to identify any murti, any idol, from which part of the country it is, which period it is likely to be, and which dynasty, which almost anybody can do. It is a very interesting exercise. In fact, I have also been training myself towards it. In my opinion, that's a very interesting one, because this unity and diversity in India is very, very interesting. And what is outside India can also be identified immediately. Whether it is a Nepali or Sinhalese or all these things around. Indian Asia, namely Afghanistan to India, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, they all have something that is common. Am I right?
Yes, I
Just immediately go outside. You can identify the difference. And this is something he has excellent gallery. And she has also arranged it very methodically. It can even be done better, of course. And she is very keen whether if people would visit and also suggest changes if the legends are found. Now, you welcome anybody to ask her any question. And we can also participate in some of the things that she is attempting to do, making an encyclopedia of sculptures in Indian temples.
I would like to say that this idea of cataloging all the different, all the different forms of each of the great gods is something that I would very much like to be a part of. Because I think that's a wonderful thing that should be done for Indian art, not just in Tamil Nadu, but for the whole country. But what a project.
Did you mention something about the door guardians, Dwarapalakas? These Dwarapalakas, the door guardians, number of them you must have seen in different temples.
Yes,
And the type of weapons that they have,
yes.
each one is identified period-wise, region-wise, the type of swords, the type of scimitars, the type of maces, and all that. You must have done some work on that.
The periods that I like usually just have a mace.
Not only mace, some of those people have got some scimitars, and some lady guardians also, there are female guardians out there, the type of different things. It is like having an AK-47 or some other revolver, like that. Difference in the weapons, they identify the period also. In that way, you must have done some work.
Yeah, I need to study that more, obviously, because I know there is that cave where they have very violent door guardians, and I haven't been to that cave and I forget which one it was.
Especially in the cave, even normal temples otherwise, from Karnataka to here, and you know different temples, the same god, but the door guardians have different types of weapons.
Yes.
There must be something about that.
I should work on that because I haven't really learned that.
I happen to come up with a small form that we don't know which is called. What's unusual about it is it's an Ardhanarishwara, probably Vijayanagar, 16th century. And but what's unusual about it is both Shaivite and Vaishnavite plates in the same sculpture.
Harihara?
I think it's Harihara, but you've got male and female as well.
Oh, my heavens.
So, and somebody was telling me there is some such icon in one of the temples in southern India.
English, eh?
Desikan told me that.
Huh?
You know, the museum curator, Desikan. And he told me that about 10 years ago. I didn't follow it up.
That's amazing, yeah, that both sexes and both.
What's Harihara?
Both,
I
yeah.
wonder if you had come across anything like that.
No, I've seen half man, half woman, and half Shiva and half Vishnu, but not both at once.
I'll send you a
Oh, would you-
photograph.
would you
Get
please?
your opinion.
I would love that.
These temples are attributed to Rituvedics. Which are the temples attributed to Rituvedics?
Irkuvedi.
You told about
Uttarayar
Rituvedics.
Irkuvedi. Now I will tell you. Basically,
Kodumbalu is attributed to Israel. And there are a few temples which Kunda is temple also in Kodumbalu is attributed to Israel. And probably one temple somewhere south of Punjab. I am not able to get it now. There are not many left now of Irkuvedi.
I don't understand the question because I don't know Ritweda.
Ritweda.
I'm sorry, I heard it wrongly. I heard it wrong.
There's an encyclopedia of of Lower Brobeck, encyclopedia of temple architecture that has a list of all the things that are in that dynasty, but I didn't bring it to India with me. If you could email me or something, I could send you the list.
The upper Dravida Desa, lower Dravida Desa, various things I think.
Yes, exactly.
It comes to 2 volumes.
By Michael Meister, yes, that's the one, and it has a list of that dynasty's temples that are left.
Yes.
The different areas, they tend to use local stones like granite in some places, marble, sandstone.
Granite.
Yeah. So, and based on the stones, the granite is the hardest, and some of the stones are similar and so on. You see variations in terms of how intricate a statue can be, or how
Yeah.
it's, do you find any differences in terms of not just the intricacy of the statues, but also of the basic shapes, the basic power in their faces, and so on? Does that vary from stone to stone?
That's very interesting. I haven't really thought about the material, and that's certainly important. Yeah, I haven't really looked at it that way, but I will. Well, thank you so much, and I will.
I see your gallery also was beautiful characters he has produced. But one thing which he pointed out is object intelligence in the 80s, not about intelligence in the 80s. We complete 3 generations in Indian art. That is generally the art historians speak, like who are some travels towards from the range of Pallavas and then the Cholas. Then suddenly there is a form. That is generally accepted. Our teacher like Suramurthy spoke much about this particular aspect because, from 60 to the 80 onwards, we got these conventions started playing slowly in the Silpa Sastra text. Silpa Sastras are the conventions, which is something for every item. Econometry is given. And the measurements are so vividly given, we cannot change it. If you want to make a sculpture or even a small item, you take at least about 3,000 measurements. If you want it, want it to be perfectly according to the text. So the initial stage is if you come to even Pallavas, even Cholas, then they would upgrade these schools strictly to those sculptures. They were very free to have their art historians. That is the reason. But then the animation, if you go to the even among the Pallavas and Cholas, you can see the difference. The Pallavas played more vital role in stone. They created animation. But Cholas could not create that animation in stone. They surpassed only in bronze. Stones, compared to these Pallavas, they were only that is that happened because of conventions. But within the conventions, they could excel. In later time also, in the Indian era period also. That played a vital role, but they excelled in some points. Suppose you want to discuss in the morning also about Narapadaka of that particular period. Narapadaka itself is a theme. Why it was a ferocious thing in the area, it becomes subdued. The later time of the Vijayanagar period, it was kind of a theme to subdue enter the sanctum. It becomes very subtle. It becomes part of the main sun. So that is the reason why the growth of art has gone with this part text also. And simultaneously accommodating something from outside also. Morning I was telling you how these Jainism came into the Hindu sculptures. What are the attributes which have been given by Jain sculptures to these
So many things have been taken. Whatever was good from other area, others have been taken. The idea of doing this research-based whatever thing, but it's a very great project. It cannot be done within 1 or 2 years. Structures of India means not in a single period. It will take about 10 years to sort of create structures we want to take it. One Chola, you go to this recent, these Chettinad states, this not Nagaras of Chettinad. Now that's so much of wonderful structures which you cannot see in this ancient period, especially iconography. Iconography is new iconography that comes in the Chettinad period, which is about 100 years, 150 years back. Nobody has studied it, it's not documented. They don't know this, no matter what is some sculptures cannot be, if you not in the text, you will search the text now to identify the sculptures. It is a big project, but I don't know if somebody comes with a great project, you will guess through. It will be a good thing that is, I can only name. Of course, going to the site, you go to the temple, each and every temple is to be very accurately, each should be documented. Then only you can say that is what is the structure. So you go, any of the temples in Tamil Nadu, about more than 100 temples are there to go. They have got separate iconography than the age iconography. This is new cut they have introduced. So these are the things we have to study in detail. Of course, what I want to say is the living tradition. Of course, Cholas did marvelous taking stone and clear dance. The living tradition, it continues. The man has got his own potential, imagination, development, and it's even now actually there is got new iconographic forms even now. So the thought which you were seeing 1,000 years, according to the art historians like us, no doubt it is even later. That beauty, that song, you cannot repeat that. But iconography as such, it is developing. So many ramifications, you cannot make it. Ramifications, even I myself find it difficult to name some of the structures. So it is a living tradition in India. I think it will live after the process. Thank you for your efforts.
Oh, I love it. Yes, I really wanted to put the Ganapati there. Oh, I think I learned a tremendous amount looking at those various streets. Oh, yes, it's the whole site. But I felt that was so much more familiar to people that I could show them.
One question, please. Here. In your opinion, how many Chola bronzes you think are in American museums?
How does that matter?
No, it doesn't matter. At least we know where they are. I mean, if you have an opportunity to go there,
There
you
are
can.
a lot of Natarajas around, yes. But they're usually late Chola. I think they're like 11th, 12th. No, I really don't have any idea.
Dozen, 2 dozen, half a dozen.
Who do you want her to guess?
Countless.
I think
Bronzes of any kind, I would say about 20.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We are very happy that you could spend some time today. I think 4,000
Oh, thank you so much.
one or two announcements. The next month, Mr. Dr. Ramachandran will give a talk pertaining to intolerance. Dr. Ramachandran is here on a visit, on his usual annual visit. Next month, that is 1st of January, he will be giving a talk. Second, some of us are planning to go to Ajanta, Ellora. And we have been preparing ourselves for this trip. So there are about 24 people who have already joined. And we are all having seminar regularly, every Saturday between 3 and 5. And everybody who has joined already for which accommodation, everything is booked. Each one will be giving a seminar, and there will also be general talks pertaining to Indian art, Indian history, etc., etc. And Each one will be giving at least one PowerPoint presentation on a Jataka or avatar. The general, all of us who are going will be attending. Those who are interested may also join participating in the seminars. So going to Ajanta will be restricted to the people who have already joined this one and for whom the booking have already been done. Every Saturday between 3 and 5, either here or in the other. Thank you very much.